Hey everyone, it's Wade here. It's pretty late where I am. I don't think it's late. I think it's now past that late stage, and it's now like early in the morning type thing. So yeah, it's what is it? It's 1:30 in the morning down under. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the little intro. I only rehearsed like a couple of times, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was probably. It was. I'm not gonna lie, it was very shit. Um, so we've got a new episode out this week, like we do every week. This one is actually Veritasium, which we're super stoked to interview. Really nice guy. He spent pretty much the whole time trying to teach Bern and I how not to be Bern and I, which is just assholes. Um, he he kind of was really good. We had a discussion about how to engage kind of in conversation with people. Sometimes it's best not just engaging. He has a lot more self-restraint than Bern and myself do. But he's great. If you don't know Veritasium, or Derek Muller, I guess is his name that he goes by. He's the, if you go to Veritasium at YouTube, he runs a channel there, and it's a really, really cool channel. He talks about all these kind of different psychology studies. He talks about science. He's a physicist by trade and an engineer, but he's got a doctorate in education and just how to convey messages and things like that to the public and how to work with misconceptions. So it was a really, really cool interview, and we kind of spoke to him about his latest venture, which he's on the Bill Nye Saves the World series, which is kind of interesting. Even he admitted during the interview that it's getting, in a way, in words there about, he kind of said it's getting mixed reviews and things like that. So some people don't like what Bill Nye stands for, other people do. I personally do. Maybe let me know what you guys think. Josh Hodgson says, I love Veritasium. Veritasium rocks. He's a nice guy. I've met him a couple of times. He doesn't know I've met him a couple of times because he didn't know I was looking at him. But yeah, he's a really nice guy. We spoke to him for about half an hour, so you can check out that on our Facebook page and everything like that, and also check it out on SoundCloud. But we spoke about science communication and just how important it is these days for people, and this is so good about our followers, that people actually need to be skeptical. Because you can go to any part of the internet whatsoever and you can get any bit of information you like. And you can have an idea that is so batshit crazy that you'll still find a pocket of the internet that agrees with you. And then all of a sudden it becomes an echo chamber. And even in the skeptical community, we need to be aware of that as well. And he went on to just how we're kind of engaging the public, and also what we should do and what he does when trying to engage the public. Because sometimes some of the criticisms that come about, and I'm not saying all the criticisms, some of the criticisms that come about, and we've found it with Sci-gasm as well, are really kind of unfounded. They're just kind of hurtful, kind of hateful. And sometimes it's best just not to engage. Now, he has a lot more self-restraint than we do. So he tends to not engage. We kind of like... Ben and I are kind of smart asses, so we take the bait. Matthew McDaniel says, I paused the science channel to watch. That's how much I love y'all's work. Oh, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, man. That's really nice of you. And we love you too in a completely plutonic way. But yeah, so it was a really kind of interesting conversation, and we just spoke about like his view on GMOs. He's got a pretty standardized, I guess, view on GMOs, kind of saying, look, it's a complex issue, and yeah, so you'll have to listen to the interview. But our kind of view, we're kind of much more kind of, well, GMOs, that's fine. Let's do this. Let's start investing in this technology. Let's start feeding people. Let's start implementing policy. Let's start getting confidence around GMOs, and putting them in the marketplace and creating policy that stops this kind of fear, I guess, this kind of fear-mongering. And that's going to continue regardless, I believe, of the policies that we implement. There will be that kind of transitional phase. But I know one of the big criticisms for GMOs is when, kind of saying, well, it's actually GMOs. A lot of the problems with feeding the third world, or the developed world, I should say, my apologies, the developed world, is that it's the actual policies implemented. They're not adopting these technologies, or there's restrictions on what's coming into the country in a variety of different reasons. So it is not just it's not as simple and black and white like most things are in saying, oh, GMOs are good, and if we invest in GMOs, we can feed the world. And that's a very kind of generalistic view on complexity in the food marketplace, and I think a lot of people agree with me. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm saying that there are a number of steps that we need to take prior to that. It's not like one day we're going to go, GMOs are safe for everyone, okay, everyone jump in, let's do this. We're going to have to implement a variety of strategies, both political and technological as well, in ensuring that these are implemented to the right places to allow people to actually gain access to food, or gain the tools and technologies needed to ensure that a variety of crops and a variety of technologies can grow and can be maximized as well, and can be provided at a profit. So I can kind of see where he's coming from with a lot of his I guess a lot of his views. He has got some hesitations, and with GMOs, just because of, well, there are some things we don't know. I can kind of see where he's come from with that. I'm a little bit more to the side of saying, well, I believe that we should start implementing them. But the widespread, ecological impacts, well, I can't see from what I've read in the literature that that's going to be such a huge kind of, I don't think it's huge. It proposes a huge potential problem. Joshua Hodgson says, you would say that being a shill. Yes, we get accused of being shills a fair bit. It's funny, for a long time I was kind of like, what is a shill? Like, why are we being called shills? I don't know. And then I looked it up, and it's like, that's what a shill is. And a shill's kind of like that person. It's like, they pretend to be a customer, and when they're actually not, they're actually employed by the company. They pretend to be, everything's great, this product's great, and then they're actually they're taking payments from the company. So that's what a shill is, just in case you're wondering. Also as well, please look at our previous episode on climate change. We actually spoke to Dr. Angela Maharaj, and she was absolutely lovely. We spoke about the prediction of climate models, how climate models can help us predict future climate trends, how accurate these models are, and to what scale, because it's not like you can compute everything and then expect this perfect answer. That's just not how models work. There has to be an error margin in there, but I guess like most things, the denialists get a hold of this error margin or this level of uncertainty, not understanding what it means, and saying, wait a minute, this level of uncertainty, they're not sure. If they're not sure about that, how can they be sure about anything? But in regards to the models and things like that, we're really kind of looking at models on a large scale are more accurate, models on a smaller scale, well, they're still learning and refining those to be more accurate. But the problem is climatic systems and weather systems are quite complex. There's so many variables involved. Now, in saying that doesn't mean that they've got no idea what they're talking about, but it is hard to develop localized, accurate models. And that's what Dr. Maharaj was saying. And we spoke about the ending of humanity, that it's all going to end, but it's one of those things where she kind of said, look, I don't know. Speaking to paleoclimatologists, they kind of think, well, the ones that I've spoken to, and they've kind of said, look, at the very best, we'll scrape through on the skin of our teeth. This is about the long-term impacts of climate change. At the very worst, things aren't looking too good. That doesn't mean extinction. Not saying extinction. What I'm saying is that it's going to be rough. And it was also interesting as well, one of the questions that Bern asked her, don't tell Bern I'm giving him raps here, but it involved how do we stop? Is there a point where we can stop? Just if everyone stopped right now, stop burning fossil fuels, what would happen? And her response was, well, we've kind of locked ourselves in for the next 100 years. So locked ourselves in for the next 100 years of climate change. I don't know, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I know that we've got Josh and Matt with us, and a few other people. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what's happening with climate change and what you think should be implemented, because I think one of the biggest hurdles we face as a community and society, and even just as a global community, is that we have to, like, we're trying to solve, or we're trying to help generations that haven't been born yet. Locking ourselves into the next 100 years of climate change and warming and things like that, it really is. I could imagine it is hard, kind of saying, well, psychologically kind of speaking, well, and it doesn't matter what you do now, but it will help your great grandkids, and or help populations 100 years from now. I think that's one of the big hurdles. Personally, I think that's one of the biggest hurdles we face. Matthew says, we need more of the wealth to get on board with funding, and we need to work with world governments to help educate people on the subject. I am assuming you are talking about GMOs. Matt, do you just correct us on that one? We on all sides need more open minds, but I agree, as a fellow smartass represent, it's hard not to poke fun. I know I will try to be less of one in serious conversations. Maybe my grandma was right. Sometimes we should bite our tongues no matter how bad it hurts. Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. I like that saying. Matt, I think that's kind of cool. Personally, I think that, I'm with a lot of people on this, and I know Burns feels the same. No idea is above ridicule. No idea is above ridicule. Yes, GMOs and climate change as well. That's what Matt just said then. So his comment related to both. Matt, but in regards to your comment, I think that no idea is above ridicule. And the best way to withstand ridicule is with evidence. And I think people who want, are kind of saying, no, that's, stop making fun of this group, or stop, stop being dicks to these people. It's like, well, that's fine. Everyone makes fun of us. We get hate mail, and it's not a problem. But really, we need to be criticizing or ridiculing things and questioning things, really. Not, and the best way of withstanding this type of criticism or ridicule is with evidence. Provide evidence. And, for instance, Noah's Ark. Like, that is just such a ridiculous idea that people still hold so dearly to, and people still believe that this dude Noah chucked all these animals, male and female, into an ark, and then as the world flooded. Like, it's a great story. Don't get me wrong. It's an awesome story, but it's not true. There is no evidence to suggest that this ark could fit two of every animal. I just think it's ridiculous, and to think that people in this day and age, with our understanding of geology, just the age of the earth, and just general science, junior science, kids science, can still believe that a person can build an ark of that size and fit two of each animal, and then have just his family on. I don't know the whole story outright. I did go to a Christian school, but once again, I just don't get it. Shannon Boyd says, hello from Canada. You guys are awesome. Oh, thanks, Shannon. Thank you very much. I'm assuming by boys you mean Wade, and by awesome you mean Burn sucks. Thank you very much. Josh Hodson wrote, I think the solution for climate change, we need to go for a technological solution, as the political will seems not to be there. I'm just scrolling up now. Be there. I have recently been working on a project with Tesla, as some of their home energy storage solution will make a massive change. I love Elon Musk. That guy is awesome. He's the closest thing we've got to Iron Man. That's what I believe. If we can nail sustainable energy production or fusion, we wouldn't need the politicians. That's kind of cool. I think the funding behind it, and the support and the infrastructure, I think in a lot of countries will need government. Once again, my personal opinion. And one of the things I find absolutely ridiculous, Josh, is that we have now. I've got a microphone, I've got a camera, I've got a wireless speaker, I've got a lamp, I've got a computer, I've got a TV, I've got all these different things, and trust me, I'm sure everyone else does as well. That's watching. How are we meant to reduce our energy consumption when we're using all these devices, when we're literally just keeping up with technology, we're keeping up with the way technology is progressing? To ask people to use less energy in this day and age is just ridiculous, because it's the items we use, the tools we use, the technology we use need, it communicate. Like, technology is a wonderful thing. We communicate. I'm speaking to people, for instance, Shannon, who's in Canada. All these people we're speaking to, and we're connecting all over the internet, and they're saying to us, just use less power. It's like, well, it's ridiculous. We need sustainable energy, and we need to ensure that we've got sustainable energy that is secure for the future. And, often you'll hear about obviously it makes the news when renewable energies break down, and that's fine. They're new technologies. They will have some failings, but the more we invest in them, the less we're going to have a lot of problems. Like, that we'll have a reduction in CO2 output from the energy production. Looking at what Elon Musk is doing with these Tesla cars and things like that, brilliant. It was interesting. There's an Adam Ruins Everything episode where he spoke about electric cars, and if they are more beneficial for the environment, or if using electric and also the hybrid cars. And one of the things he found is, currently, while we're producing our energy the way we are by primarily burning fossil fuels, electric cars are very limited in their environmental kind of degradation, the reduction of environmental degradation, which is rather interesting. But once we start adopting these new technologies, new renewable technologies, using solar power, fusion, hopefully we can make some solid progress in that over the next few years. Everything's 5 to 10 years. But all these kind of new renewable technologies, once we start powering out the cars with that, we'll find that will obviously have a flow-on effect, and making an electric car and using an electric car will be a lot more beneficial for the environment. So yeah, it's really cool. What's this? Matthew McDaniel. I wasn't saying not to ridicule or question them, just if we get them to the table, we should come ready to work and show them facts. Absolutely. Yes, sorry if I was kind of saying that, oh no, it's important that we ridicule. I completely agree with that, Matt. Can I call you Matt? I hope I can call you Matt. I agree with you there, and it's important, and even just engaging in these kind of discussions with people, it's important not to kind of come in and go, you're wrong, up yours, blah, 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 blah. Often what I find is the best... Okay, thanks, Matt. I can call him Matt. Often what I find the best way of dealing with someone, and by all means share your experiences. Shannon, you become a little bit quiet. There were some of the best ways I found dealing with people who are kind of, I guess, quite stubborn in their approach to whatever issue you're discussing, is to often say, well, what would it take to change your mind on this issue? That is, I believe, the best way of approaching it. Asking them to put forward, okay, if I give you these, what would it take? What would it take for you to say, all right, I will change my mind on this issue? And often then I'll quickly follow with, because what it would take to change my mind would be peer-reviewed literature, or a scientific evidence, reliable, valid scientific evidence from secondary sources. And often that's a good way of kind of engaging, because then the person often will kind of then have to present an idea or a group of ideas or challenges that would make them change their mind. If you can accurately address those, then you're kind of exposing them a flaw. You're exposing a flaw in their argument if they don't take it on board and go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, by the way, we've had many arguments where we've done that, and the person's actually presented us with some good information. Neonicotinoids, that episode that Byrne did, bloody giving him episode, he goes and researches this stuff, comes back, did his research, and found out that some of the stuff he said wasn't as correct as he thought he was. It's just, why do I bother, people? Why do I bother with Byrne? I don't know. But anyway, we got a whole bunch of information there from skeptical communities alike, and we also got a whole bunch of information from our followers and listeners as well, which is really, really cool because we read it, Byrne read it, and he's like, oh wow, okay, if I'd seen this article, this study, even Thoughtscapism as well, if you're not following her, she was a big part in kind of saying, hey, look, it's not as bad as what you may think, and it was rather interesting, kind of hearing their responses and hearing their summary of the literature as well. So by all means, we change our minds as well, and I think that's an important thing that we'll always kind of happily admit when we're wrong in the face of new evidence. Okay, let's have a look. Josh has said here, I am also not against some form of geoengineering, as the carbon in the atmosphere is already too high and the warming is inevitable. To avoid huge devastation, I think we need to do something. Absolutely. Using the kind of the heat and things like that look, there's so many options. This is what is so frustrating. There's so many options and so many cool ways and amazing ways that we as a society can produce energy. And if you think about like this species on this rock orbiting this nuclear explosion, our sun, we can use the power of wind and the water. I feel like I'm going to go into a Captain Planet episode. And we can use all these different powers of the wind, the water, the earth to make fire. Okay, with a bit of heart, go planet. But we can use all these different technologies. Solar, we can use wind, we can even start, nuclear. Nuclear is one of those options which is rather interesting because short term, if we want to address climate change, then the best way currently doing it, by the time that we produce the amount of wind turbines, solar panels and things like that, it's going to take us a while to do all that type of stuff. So there are issues with that type of technology. The best short-term plan, if we want to address the issue in a long-term kind of sense, is actually with nuclear power, because there are already kind of established technologies. Now the problem is you kind of have that whole thing with the odd meltdown or two, which receives a lot of media attention, rightfully so. Which I can't. You can't imagine kind of moving what those people with Fukushima and Chernobyl went through. Just the scare of it. But it's actually, nuclear power is actually one of the safest forms of generating energy. And and just from what the literature says, from what I can see, and correct me if I'm wrong, the short term, it's best that we actually, from what some of the literature is saying, is it's best that we invest in nuclear power, and that'll help that shortfall whilst we generate kind of renewable energies in the future. Matt says, I feel hydroelectric power, solar power, wind power need more funding. For that, we need to ridicule our leaders, for their corrupt actions by just siding with the people who fund their campaigns. We have to fight this fight like a mental war and attack on all fronts with intelligence, not rage. That's so true. That is, that yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. The funding system, I know it varies from country to country. I know in the US it's particularly bad in regards to what they're allowed legally to do and funding they're allowed to take. In Australia, I think the three kind of three parties: the Labour, Liberal, and I think it was I can't remember the other party. But altogether they'd taken, one senator said, over $3 million from the fossil fuel industry. Now, I know in the US it's much worse than that. I think politics shouldn't be, it was funny, I was speaking to Bern about this, and it's like, you think to yourself, why? Why does that happen? There is no other reason that the fossil fuel industry would invest in politics other than they want to be looked after in legislation and in future kind of decisions being made. And there's no other reason for that. And I think that is an absolutely disgusting thing that happens in politics. And it's all around the shop, making political donations to fund, the kind of political campaigns and stuff, I think is just one of the most ridiculous things. And I still, to this day, scratch my head at the thought that is what happens. So you can get it's easier for you to get what you want by donating money to politicians who are meant to represent the people. For me, that's absolutely ridiculous and insane. But once again, I'm not a kind of political scientist. That's just my ignorance and arrogance. If I'm wrong, once again, please let me know and correct me. Guys, if you've got any questions or anything like that, by all means, I'll put a link to subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested, there it is right there. If you're interested, please, what we need right now is we need you guys to spread the word about Sci-gasm. We need as much help as we can get. You guys have been awesome. Oh, and we've got an awesome interview coming up. So I'll also put up a post on our page. It's with, I know I said this in the last podcast, it's with Lawrence Krauss, who has been a big influence on both Bern and myself in, just in our kind of thought, our scientific reasoning. So I'm really excited to talk to him about his new book. I'm halfway through it, and it is a really, really good read. So make sure you go out there and get it. But you'll hear more of us kind of talking about with Lawrence Krauss. We're going to sit down with him, have a one-on-one conversation, and just talk science. And it's so cool that we get the opportunity to do it. And by the way, your donations and everything like that, we've got the Richard Feynman pictures and things like that. So they'll be arriving shortly. Let's say, okay. I just saw Lawrence. Oh, you just saw Lawrence Krauss, Shannon. And hello, Andrew. Hello, Andrew Robert. I just saw Lawrence. Oh, yeah, he's kind of, I think that's for the new book tour, I think, Shannon. That he's going around, which is kind of cool. You're from Canada, so I know that on his Twitter feed he was recently in Canada. So I'm really, really looking forward to speaking to him. His book, his writing is incredible. Just how he discusses the different phrase, like just how he words things is just amazing. I can barely speak, and this guy can write a whole book. Okay, this is what is it Lucian or Lucian? I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Just maybe spell it phonetically, so I don't stuff it up. How I see it. The main problem starting to be political. There is too many people who have opinion on problems they don't know anything about. And in the democratic system, it is crazy that people with knowledge and understanding have the same one vote like anyone else. Yes, democracy. I agree with you. I can't think of, though, a better system than democracy, letting the people decide who represents them. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson said when you have people in positions of power displaying willful scientific ignorance, I think that's the end of an informed democracy. And I can completely agree with what Neil Tyson says in regards to that. Really, it's one of those things. Yeah, you have the same vote as someone who believes that the Earth is flat. Well, and once again, but even looking at that, the political system, depending on where you are, I'm assuming that it's might be similar to Australia, but like, you know, even having kind of, if you live in an area which is very committed to one political party, then your vote, or the amount of people in there, your vote may not count as much as someone living somewhere else in another region. And we found that with the recent American election where Trump got in, things like that. Shannon said this is about Lawrence Krauss. She said, yes, Lawrence Krauss was incredible. The last question of the night was a boy about 6 or 7 years old asking how to approach a problem you don't know how to solve. And among other things, Lawrence told the boy, don't let the bastards get you down. It made me tear up. That is so cool. That is so awesome. And good parenting with the parents taking the 6-year-old to see Lawrence Krauss. I know one of the admins for refutations against anti-vaccine memes on that page. He takes his kid to go and see. He's taking his kid to go see Lawrence Krauss. His kid wanted to go see it as well, which I thought was awesome. That was so cool. Yeah, but look, guys, I've been kind of keeping you guys here. I appreciate all the listens and everything. Please get our podcast out there, share it around. We appreciate all your support and all the lovely letters, or not letters, but emails we get from people and messages, and we love the hate mail too. And we love you guys so much. So thank you very much for tuning in this time, and we can't thank you guys enough for your support. And hopefully we'll be able to deliver some more great episodes. We've had climate scientists, we've had another climate scientist, and more climate science. We've had Veritasium, we've had GMOs, discussed GMOs with Kevin Folter, we've had Paul Offit, we've spoken with Karen Bonder about animal sex, we've spoken to some amazing people, and we put so much effort in because you guys seem to enjoy it so much. So thanks very much, guys, and please keep safe, and we'll see you in the short term. We're also going to have a physics versus biology battle off over the net, because Bern and I can't be in the same room when we talk about physics and biology. Nothing sexual, just we can't be in the same room because we end up arguing quite heavily about it. Go physics. See you later, guys.